How do I stop myself from overthinking and overanalyzing everything I do and everything people might think about me? Okay. Um, so let's start with the first part. So I think one of the difficulties, let's see. Okay. So I think there's also a loaded question, but how do I stop myself from overthinking and overlaying everything? Okay, so I think it's almost two parts because on the one hand, someone is overthinking, overanalyzing this, and then the other part of this is that I'm concerned about what other people think about me. Okay, so let me answer the first part and say there is a healthy degree in which we do evaluate ourselves. Paul does tell us to evaluate to see if we're in the faith. So that is important in order to discern if we are like really following Christ well. So that there's a healthy degree to that, and then there's also two unhealthy degrees. One of which is you just don't care and you don't really want to, if, for whatever reason, be evaluated or evaluate yourself. And the other hand is an obsession or an overthinking, overanalyzing. So for this, I would say for you, if you're overthinking, overanalyzing everything, I would ask the question, where does that come from? I think there is some source to that. And maybe it's an anxiousness, maybe it's a fear, maybe there's some sort of source as to why that overthinking, overanalyzing everything. I mean, that's what I do. My mind's always racing, and some of us are wired that way to be very analytical. If you've ever done that StrengthsFinders test, that's a very helpful way to see what your strengths are. And a lot of mine are just my strengths. Like I'm analytical. I think about the future. I can dissect things well. So some of that just may be our wiring, which is totally good. But there's a degree to which it can be warped into an unhealthy way, which is kind of toxic to yourself, is if it becomes an overwhelming sense of concern. And I would say the reason why it twists that way is probably pride. So the idea of pride is this, is that you're not necessarily, the goal to conquer pride is not necessarily to think less of yourself, but to think of yourself less. So in other words, I'm not trying to bash myself or beat myself up, but what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to think about myself less. So in that sense, you'll just have to ask Christ, Lord, help me to have the power, the ability to focus on you, think about you. And obviously, the more and more time you think about Christ and meditate on him, the less you're thinking about yourself. So in that sense, you just have to ask the Lord for guidance and help. And then ideally, you'll start to think about yourself less. Now, sometimes we have a tendency to do that, and that just happens unconsciously, if you will, or our minds just start running, right? So in that case, I would say, yeah, you'll have to look at the source and prayerfully consider what is this source? Is there's something deeper? Is there something that I'm more concerned about than worshiping Christ? And I think that has a lot to do with your second question, second part of the question. The second part of the question is, I overthink, overanalyze everything people might think about me. So in Proverbs, it says that the fear of man is a snare. So in other words, if I'm concerned about people pleasing, I'm concerned about what other people think about me, the fear of man. So in other words, fear is most likely the source of all this concern. And scripturally, the idea to cast out fear is that the perfect love of God casts out all fear. So in other words, the way to overcome this is to allow more and more of the love of God to overwhelm and consume. You're so overwhelmed and satisfied with the way God sees you. Okay. So, but yeah, with regards to that fear, maybe there's something the Lord wants to heal with regards to whatever fear. Maybe you've been bullied before. Maybe you've had something embarrassing and then you feel really guilty about, or something like that, and so you may need to work with that with the Lord in prayer, and or talk with a few other trusted people to pray over you through those concerns.
Keep it dank, not a request.